where did you know? What was the turning point of your career? What was the moment you realized that this is the way, this is the journey? And I will start with my own, introducing the platform that actually Patrick talked about. I created a platform called Holkis Marketing 5 years ago when I entered a tech conference where I was a speaker, and they stopped me at the entrance and said, "The cloakroom for the waitresses is over there." Because they have never seen a woman as a speaker at a tech conference. And I got really pissed, really pissed. And I said, yeah, this is really horrible. We should change this. And this anger turned into a community which currently unites more than 17,000 women marketing professionals in the Czech Republic. For example, 12% women found a job or an employee through that platform. And we are being recognized by Facebook as one of the most influential platforms. And it only happened because of that turning moment, because of that one anger, because of that one sentence. So I would like to ask my speakers, what was your turning point?
That's a great question. My turning point was a time many years ago. I've always wanted to do work that made a difference to the world, was socially good. And I ended up working in the railways, another very male-dominated environment. But it wasn't really pressing my social buttons enough, and I decided to ask to work part-time 4 days a week and spend the fifth day volunteering, job searching, exploring other options, because if I was working all the time, I didn't have the chance to get my foot in the door, and I kept applying for stuff and being turned down. So one day I was sitting at home feeling like I was getting nowhere and feeling sorry for myself, and then and I said to myself, oh, the trouble is I don't know what I want. And then I thought, no, you're lying to yourself. You know what you want. You just don't know how to get it. What you want to do is help other people do what they want to do. And that became my touchstone phrase. What I want to do is help other people do what they want to do. And I studied careers guidance and then ended up doing business support, ran my own business doing business advice and growth, and helping people change career into social business sector. And that's pretty much what I do now.
So my turning point was I was working in the tobacco company in Philip Morris for some time, but I worked in the regulatory area where we were shaping the regulation for something which sounded like science fiction at that time. Because in tobacco, especially in Philip Morris, we knew that there was a need to develop products which are a better solution for adult smokers who want to continue smoking. So the products which are less harmful or have at least the potential to be less harmful. And we were having a discussion with regulators how that framework could look like and what are the conditions for the products to have that tagline. And then when I saw that actually the regulators are listening to us, and actually the regulatory framework was shaping up, and at the same time I saw that our research and development after 7-8 years has finally come to something which is pretty tangible, and at that time the products were already test launched in Japan and in Italy. I made the decision that I really want to bring these products to my home countries, which are, I'm Slovak by nature, but I lived in Czech Republic before I went to Switzerland where I was working on that regulation. And basically I said I really want to, yes, stay in this company, but change the job significantly and go and work on business and bring these products to Czech, Slovakia and Hungary. Of course, it was not easy, because it was in corporations you have the careers pretty much outlined, and if you start working in one area, everybody expects that you become better and better and in that area, and you have a bigger and bigger job in that area. So it was a big change, and I didn't find many supporters and fans of that idea, because I was really changing the job from one area to a completely different one, business. But I made it. So I went step by step, and I was looking for friends and for those who supported, who could imagine that this was going to happen. And, you know, I think if you really try enough and you don't give up, there is a point when you get it. So, and I am the walking example.
Perfect. Kim?
So I work for, I'm co-founder of a travel app, and I think the biggest turning point for me in my career was that I studied hospitality, which had nothing to do with, you know, apps and all this stuff. And then I decided to study digital marketing. I went to Dublin, studied that. I worked then for an aviation company, and I decided to help my family a little bit with the family business, which is private aviation. And for me, that was kind of the turning point, because private aviation industry is quite male-dominated. And I have to say that was the first time I kind of experienced it, and that I was a woman and being put in my place a little bit, being questioned whether or not I knew certain things about aircrafts and so on, even though I grew up with it and I think I could easily be as good as anybody else around there. And that was something for me, like a big turning point. And I decided I wanted to start working for startups. I got really interested in tech. And when my co-founders approached me with this new opportunity, we decided to take it. And so far it's been a great journey. And I think we all really work hard for it. So I think, like you said, you just have to continue and push for it and not let people stop you. And that was my story.
So, good afternoon, everybody, first of all, and it's a great place to be. I got very inspired by your stories, to be honest, because in my case, there was no turning point. Actually, there was no such a thing that made me decide what I'm doing today. I studied diplomacy, political science and diplomacy in Greece. I'm Greek, as you maybe understand from the accent. So studying diplomacy, do diplomacy in Greece is like mission impossible. So you need to have political connections. So it was very easy that this I will not do, for sure. And then I started thinking that I want to do something with people. And I chose HR. But at the moment in my age, you know, at this moment of time, HR was not really popular. And to be honest, I didn't know exactly what it was about. I knew that maybe I'm good working with people. And this is how I started. Working in HR in different companies based in Greece. If there was a turning point, it was the moment where I decided to do international career. But again, it was not really a conscious decision. It was more like it was offered, you know, based on the skills and the experience, and I just grabbed the opportunity. You know, this is how it happened. So there was not any conscious plan around it. It was more like loving what doing, and that was spread around, and grab the opportunity of doing something further than that. That was it.
Very good. Andrea, I will actually kind of move on from what you said. You said at the time it was really tough. It was challenging. What were the challenging times, and how did you overcome the challenge?
The challenges were plentiful.
I expected that somehow.
The challenges were plentiful. And the biggest challenges were actually with the people who worked very closely with me, even though they had all the trust that I can do anything, but they were the ones who really didn't want to let me go. So it's like we have a saying in Slovak that at home it's very difficult to be a prophet, yes? So somebody from the neighborhood is always better, if I am cynical, okay, and exaggerating. So the challenges were with my direct boss, with the boss of my direct boss, and etc. So I really needed to go out of box, and I needed to find first those people who would trust me, but at the same time who would be in a position to make that decision. And that is something what I think I was at the end also quite lucky. I worked on that luck, but I worked on that luck. So basically I just didn't let go, yes. So again, my boss, no. The boss of my boss, no, because you are so fantastic, you should be doing this. We are counting with you there, and we are counting with you there. And then there was a moment, okay, but you know, I don't like to be on autopilot, or I don't want to be in the car which is driven by somebody else. At the end of the day, I think we should be driving the cars of our life. And I just, and at the same time, when I finally was given a chance, or there was a light at the end of the tunnel, I started pissing off people as well. So, and then there was a moment when you also have to talk to the people who have guts and who have experienced something like that. And there was a moment one guy told me, but Andrea, you will anyway piss off somebody in your life. So why bother? And that was a golden advice. And I said, exactly, if I go there, I will make unhappy one side. If I go there, I will make unhappy that side. Why don't I at least make myself happy? So, and I think, and that's also the substance of how I try to live, because I believe only as long as we are happy, you know, satisfied and fulfilled, that's when we can shine and inspire others.
It sounds like a very startup mindset. It feels like pissing everybody off. Kim, Kim, would you agree with that? And what were your
Definitely.
challenges being a startup co-founder?
I would say like one of the biggest challenges we face with a startup is always in the beginning. It's you have an idea, you know it's good, but then you need to build partnerships, you need to make other people believe that, and that's where you get shut down because you're just a startup, you have no one really important backing you. You're three girls coming into somebody's office and they're like, great girls, but come back when you have users, come back when you have this, you know, they don't want to take a risk on you. Where, you know, then later in the game, you come back and you have all that, and suddenly everyone's like, "Oh, hey, let's work together." But in the beginning, they didn't want to like really deal with us. So that was something we had to overcome, and we had to keep pushing ourselves. Like, if the door was closed, look for a window, and we continued doing this. And actually, us three girls were able to support each other through this. One of our co-founders, she's more like into financing. The other one's more into tech, and I'm more into marketing. So through this, we were able to actually navigate and find new holes to get us through the door. So that's what I would say was one of our biggest challenges.
Devi, your role is actually consulting startup like Kim's. Is it something that you see as a typical challenge, this comeback when you're ready?
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, I've even said it to people. I think what's really interesting about the entrepreneurs that succeed is they have qualities that sound like a paradox, but the entrepreneurs that succeed always have two things. One is they are massively persistent. They don't take no for an answer. They keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, and they're selling every day. You know, they meet the bus driver and they'll be selling, and they'll go to the corner shop and they'll be it's like every time they have a conversation, they're talking about their business. It's an obsession. And at the same time, they're amazing learners. There's a strange combination of you hang on to the core of what you're doing, but you suck up change and the ability to do it better and understanding better why people are saying no to you and handling that and adjusting and adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. This combination of not changing and changing is what I see in all the successful entrepreneurs. So, and the ability to, often with help, I mean, I think actually people who are working on their own find it much, much harder with your supporters, but the ability to live through the dark times. I keep quoting this. It's one of my favorite quotes from a woman called Rosabeth Moss-Kanter, who is the professor of change management at Harvard Business School. She says, all success looks like failure in the middle. So you have to live through the failure. You can't pretend that you're not going to go through it and then you come out the other side, hopefully. Or you don't. You don't know. That's the point. You don't know which one it will be until you've done it.
Kyriake, is that the way how you would describe challenges in a corporation? Because you have been your whole life in a corporation.
Yes. We used to say, and we live in this way, we see more challenge as an opportunity. And this is what we try to do, and this is how we try to think in order to move on. Because challenges happens every day in our life, okay, personally and professionally, that's true. But how through the challenge you can learn, you can find new ways, you can think further, you can grow, you can fail and learn again, you can gain confidence, And this is the magic thing, I think. I mean, through the challenges, you really, the challenges can really make you think differently. In the corporation as well, the same as in your cases.
Have you, we were talking about those challenges, but you feel like it feels like you're all very accomplished and very self-confident women. Was that always the case?
It still isn't. You always worry all the time. I know statistically that women are much more likely to have imposter syndrome than anyone else. One of the things I've learned, though, is that I have to live through that feeling again and again and again. When I started working as a consultant, this is about 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, I would be going off to meet clients, often on my own, sometimes with my boss, who was a very good talker. He was one of those inspiring people who could just make something out of nothing. He was also very unreliable and wouldn't deliver and would break promises all the time. So the rest of us were trying to then deliver his promises. So I didn't stay there for very long. But, you know, there I was in this environment, and every time, and it still happens quite often, every time I'd go in, I'd think to myself, what am I going to tell these people? They know their business way better than I do, and they're experts in this, and you know, they know what they're talking about. Within an hour or two, I'd be going, oh, it's fine. I can help. I don't know everything, but I can help. It becomes really clear really easily, and that it's part of the learning mentality as well. But I learnt, the feeling doesn't go away, but I learnt that I can cope with it, and it won't be true in a few hours.
Girls?
So I think what we also need to differentiate, what is good to differentiate, is healthy confidence with, you can still be humble with that, and arrogance. And I think these are two very completely different things. So am I confident and humble? Have I always been? It grows with experience, I have to say. And I will be able to tell you a little bit more maybe later, because what I am actually doing and what I have spent my 3 years time on is I'm really encouraging people to quit smoking, and I still work for tobacco company, okay? So, and I mean it. Have I done it before? No. Was I, somehow, did I have question marks? I had. But at the same time, I think with experience, I learned that if I really focus and devote my time and effort and do whatever is needed to be done, I crack it. And I think it's the majority of us. It's probably all of us. So I think the confidence in will I make it, it grows with experience, but I feel pretty solid there. But then what I think we are also facing very often is the arrogance. And these are usually people who don't even deliver, who don't make it, who, you know. So I think that's what I am trying to be very careful in my life about, is to be healthy, confident, because I know that if I invest, I make it. At the same time, to be humble, and because I think that once that changes, also the focus on quality and delivery goes somewhere completely different. So I just want to be straight with myself, that what I choose, I deliver, and we go on.
I mean, I think as like from a startup point of view, you know, you have to believe in your own product. You know, there's always going to be people who tell you, like, even in my close circle, people were like, it doesn't look like it's going to work. And I just have to be confident enough in what I'm actually trying to achieve out of it. And then really, nobody can really put you down. There are going to be days where, yes, you're going to be turned down and it's going to suck. And you're going to be like, okay, I really don't think this is the right thing. But then you're going to, like I said, find a new window and you're going to keep pushing through. Because if you don't believe in your own product, why should anybody else? That's the only thing. So yes, you will have bad days. But like I said, if you're confident and, you know, you can push through and not be arrogant about it, you will succeed, I think.
Kyriaki, you have a huge experience being HR. So I believe that you have a lot of tools and kind of strategies how to cope with this.
We do. And tactics and tools and trainings and many other things. But there's something that is a bit simpler than that, if I may, talking about confidence. I think that the most important thing is to admit and recognize that we are all humans, above everything of what we're doing. And humans have up and downs, have beautiful and dark days, have everything. So this is the first one thing to remember always. And the second thing is that beyond the tools, from my experience, the number one way to increase your confidence is actually to try. To try things that it's beyond your comfort zone, that sometimes are scary. And from those things, the only thing that happens for sure is that we go stronger and stronger out. I have a personal story to share here. I had for many, many years stage fear. You know what that means? Actually, that means that I should not stay here in front of you now, okay? So before I go to any kind of stage, or before I go in front of any people, I will die, okay, normally I have this. So there were two ways, either to not do it never, or to try. So I tried. The first time was awful. I almost died. The second time was a bit better. I stayed alive. The third better, So, and I reached the moment that I actually enjoy it. So that's my personal story of confidence that I would like to share with you because I feel quite confident to share it. And because I truly believe that in these moments are the real moments of learning beyond any tools and tactics.
Still, I would love to ask any of you if you had mentors, because so many times when you talk about like female leadership, mentors are always mentioned. Was that something? And was maybe if you had mentors or sponsors, because I believe there's a huge difference between those two.
Thank you,
I think you
for
won
democratic choice. I never had a formal mentor, but I had in the most important times in my life, I had the right people around me. And I am that kind of person who likes, to fight my own fight. But at the same time, I am quite sensitive to perceiving where my safety net is. So when in a deep thinking process or decision-making process, I definitely have a few people whom I can activate, and they work perfectly. At the same time, I don't want to, misuse their time and bother them when I think I should make my own decisions with things which are below their radar screen. So mentors, I have a network to activate. Sponsors, it's sometimes the situation in corporation, you have the system which really prevails. And I think you have to, in a corporation, you have to convince a bunch of people to sponsor you, because usually you either have the sponsor of CEO or then anybody can be overruled. So in my situation in the working environment, it's always, yes, there is a group of people, relevant people whom I need to convince that with my team we are able to tackle something, and then I can rely that through the system they open the door.
Kim, for you as a startup co-founder, the role of the mentors could be crucial. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. We went to incubator now in New York. So our CEO, she was over there, and we have different mentors over there. We also work with some mentors here in Prague. Personally, myself, I'm more in the line with you, where I never had an official mentor, but there's a lot of people around me that I would feel like act like mentors to me, and that I can always go to and, you know, discuss things or get advice from. And I think in any startup that is so important to actually surround yourself with people like that. It's just more healthier for you. It motivates you to have people around you that can actually, you know, help you get to where you need to be. And again, you don't abuse their time, but they are interested in seeing you succeed. And that's what you want basically around you.
I just want to add a couple of interesting facts. I haven't had a mentor, but I have been a mentor and I have run mentoring programs many times. We had one of the organizations that funds the Impact Hub has been funding accelerators all around the world and has done some research into what factors make a difference, make the biggest difference to startups succeeding. And one of the things they discovered, was that if you have a mentor who is the same gender as you, you are significantly more likely to succeed. So women do better with women mentors and men do better with men as mentors. The first one didn't surprise me, the second one did, but apparently their research showed, you know, a significant percentage increase in the revenue of the company depending on the gender of their mentors.
Very nice. Do you want to comment on it?
I can.
I expected it from somebody in communication, but yeah.
I think that's very interesting, first to say. On the other side, I would, maybe rather than a comment, I would have a question, because that is something what I come across. Do you have sufficient role models among women?
I'm happy you are asking. That's my next question.
Because very often, and I have to say that I am currently in a, you know, I have always thought about it, and now I just talk about it, is I do lack, you know, really, it's not that I can't find one or two or three, but in general, I think for me it's a challenge. So the question, how are you doing with the role models?
I work in the social sector, so there are many, many female role models. And the managing director of our organization when I joined was a woman. Now we have a man, but he's, yeah. There are, out of our team, more than 2/3 of us are women. And out of the entrepreneurs that we work with, 45% are women. And out of the global board of the Impact Hub, 4 out of 5 of them are women. So yes.
Congratulations.
In the railways, not so much.
Very impressive. Girls, what about your?
Thank you for the democratic approach. So role models. Look, I will just give a bit of different perspective on role modeling, because I think it's extremely difficult by default to find a role model, because a role model, it's a role model on everything, holistically, you know. That for me nowadays is extremely difficult to find it, all in one, female and male. So for me, I'm extremely conscious on role modeling overall. But what I acknowledge and what I find across in the corporation as well are people who are good on something. So role model on that, you know, specific thing. And this we do. I mean, I can find among my colleagues, I can find among my team, I can find across. People who are great, good or great on specific things. And these, yes, I mean, we use them. We use them to learn, we use them to spread their knowledge, and we use them a lot. That's my personal experience.
Do you know your role models? Because I'm always having a question, like, I don't know, I totally admire Angela Ahrendts from former Burberry CEO, and I feel like she's so perfect she can't be real. And I would like to know she's sometimes crying in bed in her pajamas, and you know, it just doesn't feel real. So my question is, are your role models real people, or are they more like those kind of Hollywood stars almost? Or those like...
I replied, I don't believe in it. So, okay. And I don't believe in perfectionist overall. that's my state of mind, and this how I live. So I don't like it, I do not follow it, and I don't want to do it. So it doesn't exist for me. I don't know about you if you have this kind of...
Can I tell you a quick story? This is not completely a business story, but I think it illustrates the reality. I have a friend that I used to work with. We were both business advisors in different regions of the UK. And for me, she was really my role model. She was somebody who, in her youth, picked up her 2-year-old daughter and moved to India and lived there for years. And she started multiple businesses. And one day I visited her and she said, I had an idea this morning that I would run this big event, and within half an hour we were walking along the road to the venue where the event might be, and she wasn't saying I had an idea, I might. She was telling everyone she was doing it and when the date would be, and etc. She was one of those people that just made things happen. She knew everybody. She was hugely networked, and I was just kind of in awe of her. And she had 2 kids who were amazing. So I went on maternity leave. I had my first child, and I was exhausted, as many people are when they have the first child. Not enough sleep, and I was like, God, I used to think I was good at stuff, but I can't, billions of people have done this in the past and I'm dying here, so what's wrong with me? And she came to visit me, and I just started to say about how hard I was finding it, and she said, yeah, I remember thinking that if I threw the baby out of the window, everything would be okay. Oh my God, thank goodness. It was nothing wrong with me. This is just normal.
Kim, you wanted to...
No, I just wanted to say, I mean, I think the people, like in our case, we're really like a female startup. Our investor, she's a startup as well, a very successful lady. And I think she is really like a role model to us in that way. But because we also go to a lot of these summits, like Web Summit, we meet like women that are just super inspirational. And it just kind of helps you. Like, I think it motivates you to see like, okay, like it's not impossible, just work hard for it and you will achieve it. So, I mean, they're real. It doesn't have to be a celebrity or somebody. It can really just be like, you said, like employees, other people, if they have certain traits that you think are really like valuable, you take that onto yourself as well then.
Yeah, I actually prepared a few data. 400 men, 79 women are promoted. Currently, men held 62% of manager positions, according to a McKinsey study. Actually, only 8% investors are female. So we are actually like lacking role models. We are lacking women who can be maybe our sponsors in that. How do you promote diversity in your companies? Because I believe that we can agree on the fact that actually diversity is a big player when it comes to, for example, financial success of the company and so on. Andrea, you're always the winner.
Maybe not always. What I would like to give is an example of our company, which I think is undergoing a major transformation. I started working there in late 90s, and when I walked into, I went there for interview for fun, okay? I didn't have any American business background. I am not a smoker, I really was not interested in tobacco. I just said, okay, I have never been for an interview in an American company, why don't I get that experience? Then I got seduced, okay, and that's for a different discussion why, but I remember the moment when I walked into the corridor and I felt like in a Matrix movie. It's like men in the dark suits, white shirts, beautiful, yeah, very handsome. They were just missing the glasses. And that was the late 90s. Now I have to say that also with the transformation, changing the product, because we are really, in Philip Morris, unless you already know, we are really, really ending, and we are looking forward for the day when we can stop producing and selling cigarettes, because we are building something which is revolutionary for the humanity. And we are bringing this new product to the market, which requires a completely different interaction with the consumer. And that one is an excellent opportunity for us, and we are really beating the drum and using that opportunity for changing the environment and the diversity in the company. And yes, we are changing and increasing the women in the leadership positions. We have a target of 40% in the year 2022. We can still discuss whether 40 is sufficient, but I think at least it gives us a direction. At the same time, the diversity is much more than men and women, yes? And I think that's also very important to realize, because that's about, yes, sex, men, women, but it's about geography, where we come from, Greece, Slovakia, England, Sweden. I think that also gives the juice to the things which are happening, is the education. Yes, what is our education background? It's our working experience. It's our family status. Yes, where am I in my private life? And I think this is super enriching, and it's inevitable. And I'm super happy that in my company we are using these times to really increase the diversity on all fronts. And I think it's super important, because at the end of the day, it's like we at the panel are very diverse. You are all very diverse. And if we want to talk to each other, we have to be on both sides very diverse, so that we understand, so that there is somebody who understands somebody on the other side much better. So I'm a big believer.
I'm super happy you were saying that. You want to?
Yeah, I want to add something. I mean, we've been banging this drum about diversity, but I think one of the things everyone has to acknowledge is that there's always way more that you can do, and that often the things that make people feel included are the really subtle things. So one of the most inclusive impact hubs in the network is Impact Hub Oakland in California, and the director of that organization was talking about how it's down to the food that you serve. Do people walk in the door and they recognize themselves in the food that you serve and the way that you eat it, whether you use chopsticks or your fingers or knife and fork? It's everything. So we have some basic things. We have a lift. That means that every part of our organization can be accessed by people with disabilities. That's something. But what we don't have is, for example, everything's in Braille or in other accessible formats. We have a lot of women. We have a lot of international team members. We have team members from Argentina and Italy, and et cetera, et cetera. There was a joke for a while. We had more Brazilians than we had English people working in our team. Literally, we did. But the other thing that, but there's always more to do. And the other thing we're starting to really actively do is talk about how entrepreneurship is a white middle class game, and the reasons for that. The reasons are partly because the expectations in people's own minds, the way they recognize themselves in the community, but it's also because entrepreneurship is expensive and stressful. So if you are supporting a family, it's hard to become an entrepreneur if you're the main breadwinner. Because often you're expected to live for 3 years or something before you start paying yourself a salary. Well, most people can't do that. It's just not realistic. It's hard to get investment if you're not white. It is just harder. All of these things are structural problems, and part of it's down to the expectation, the culture, that if you're an entrepreneur, you have to drive yourself into the ground, otherwise you're not doing it properly. We fundamentally disagree with that. We think this is really culturally inappropriate and problematic. So we're doing several things. First of all, we're starting to look at the mental health implications of mental health at work and mental health for entrepreneurs in particular. We're starting to run sessions, events, trainings, and incubate businesses that tackle mental health issues at work. And to look at work-life balance in a much more holistic way than just, you get to go home at 6 o'clock. Even that's later than some people want to be able to go home. Secondly, we're starting to run programs for groups that wouldn't normally think of themselves as entrepreneurs. So, for example, we are launching a program, an entrepreneurship program for people who've experienced homelessness. Because in social enterprise, there are loads of programs for people to help homeless people, but not programs for homeless people to run a business themselves. Well, we think that's problematic. So we're running a program for homeless people to help themselves and to set up a business that they want to run that inspires them. So we're looking at lots of different groups of people and using mentoring, which we've already talked about, in order to help them to change to build their confidence and change the mindset, but also to be part of our community more widely, because one of the problems with being homeless is that you become invisible. And you stop feeling that you're accepted as a human being. So you become part of our community, you get a place at the table with everybody else, and that's a massive confidence boost and changes your likelihood of success. So we're doing programs for homeless people, for refugees and migrants, for Muslim women, and looking at more and more of these different groups of people who we can include in our community, because then increasingly when people come to the door and look in, they'll see, of course they're included, because look, there's this mixture of people. But we're not there yet. We're just starting. There's a long way to go.
I think it's really amazing what you're doing, really. Kyriakou, I wanted to ask you actually, how do you encourage diversity, and how do you encourage like the right ways of treatment for everybody? We recently did a research in Czech marketing. Currently there is a 38% pay gap. And when we started doing research, where does the pay gap originate? It's not only that they are not being promoted enough, but also that they don't ask for enough money during the job interview.
Okay. First of all, similar to your company, Coca-Cola Hellenic, also we saw how serious we are around diversity by putting the big target. So you said 40%, we're on 50%. And you realize that the comments are really serious about it. It sounds good, but there's also a purpose behind, okay? The comments don't do things like that. Diversity brings different way of thinking and brings growth. That's why the comments are doing that. Now, going down to earth and being practical, the whole system needs to support it. And it's a multi-dimensional element. It's the company, it's the female, if we talk about sex diversity, it's the female, it's the personal barriers, it's the community, it's everything. So I would like to touch the two important things in my view. One is the company, so what companies are doing, but also what the female employee is doing, okay? Because there are two things. Now, from company perspective, to be honest, I'm working more than 10 years in a company like Coca-Cola Hellenic, where diversity was not, or equal treatment was not, it was not a question around that, it was given. And talking about pay and salaries, we had recently the salary increase. That's why I was looking to my team. The type of, this kind of discrepancy between the male, female, I have never experienced in my company in terms of pay. What I have experienced a lot, it's female employees who are extremely capable, knowledgeable, smart, and amazing, but somehow they hesitate to move on. This is what I have experienced. And the reason why they hesitate to move on, in my view and my humble opinion, there are actually two reasons. The one is the personal barrier, so whatever the person believes, so what kind of support she has at home, what she inspires, what is her purpose, so her personal barrier. And from the other side, how the company in practice support it. So 50% target needs to come in practice. And that is part-time jobs, flexibility, which is tools, trainings, leadership mentoring, investment in terms of money to support. And these kind of things, because that creates the environment. And beyond that is the whole culture and the whole mindset within the company, which is even if you have the tool, you need also to behave like, So when a mother has a sick a kid at home, you behave like it's extremely important for the mom to be at home, and you show that in practice,
Can I add to that? When a father has a sick kid at home, it's really important for him to take his share and do that too. This is the change we need to make, because if it's only that we accommodate mothers to go home when they're sick, we will never have equality, because however careful you are, if you have fewer days at work, you aren't going to progress as quickly. You're just not. I'm happy to say that I work 4 days a week because I have 2 kids, and I get paid for 4 days a week and I work 5. But I work 4 days a week, spend 1 day at home, and I pick my kids up from school. I'm happy to say that my boss, who's a man, who's in his 50s, he leaves work at 4 o'clock every day to pick his kids up from school. And he works 4 days a week as well. That's when you have that, then you start having change. If it's only women who have to change and women who have to be accommodated, that's necessary, but it's not sufficient.
I'm a single mother, and maybe it was very important for me to mention it. It's true. So for both, and this is the equal treatment also supports this kind of culture that both had equal also responsibility at home.
Before we turn into questions, actually, I would like to ask men in the audience. Because so many times I feel like the diversity talk is only like among women. It feels like we need to support each other, we need to share, we need to find role models, we need to. And I would like to know if any of you men consciously are trying to improve the diversity situation in your company. And I can share a personal experience. I had a manager in a company one day, and he said, like, every time I see a girl who's not speaking at a meeting which I'm attending, I directly ask her and say, Katarzyna, what do you think about this topic? I would love to hear your opinion. And this is what he did every time, and really helped with the diversity in the company. But I would like to see if there's any men who would like to share his strategy and story.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, we have I can't move much, but...
Thank you. I'm actually lucky that I inherited the situation in my team that my report works 3 days a week because of the kids, and I'm happy that the company allowed that, and I think that it's not having massive impact on her progress. Of course, that's a quite big change. I mean, it's not 3 days out of 5. It's a big difference. But when I was in charge of, for example, of the field team, we were not, and this is what I always don't like, and I'm glad that you actually mentioned it. You don't look at the gender, and I think that's the most important thing to do. I mean, you really look at the qualities that you are after, and if they are present in a person that has XX or XY, it's not that relevant, the chromosomes. It's about whether that person will fit, whether the person has the skills, and I think we should. That's when whether these targets like the 50%, I mean, yeah, let's make 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. I mean, it doesn't, to me personally, it doesn't make sense. It's a common sense. If I see the quality in the person, I should hire the person, I should promote the person. And I was lucky enough that at one point we were hiring like 17 people in the front line, and I would say the majority were women. There were other reasons why there were more women hired, because, for example, now in this economy, they are more looking for some jobs. I mean, guys are in different positions already established. But I was really happy that we went. There were like 60 people, the original staff. Most of them were men, 30 plus, 35 plus, and in like 3-4 months, we really injected in most of the teams new, ambitious, really inspirational new employees. We happen to be most of them women, and I think really changed the dynamics in some of the teams.
Can I ask what company you work for?
I work with Andrea, actually.
Okay, right.
She hired me 10 years ago, And it's funny because when I walked into Philip Morris at that time, out of the 7 members of the management in that affiliate, 4 were women. And I never thought about it. Like, we were looking for quotas. We were 60 plus at the time. So this is why I don't like the quotas, but it's possible. It's possible without them, I think.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to share their... I will maybe, before we go into questions, I will share one thing that I found. Actually, 1 in 5 women in general are the only female person in the company. And if you are the only, you're actually 80% of them suffered from microaggressions, kind of like being doubted, feeling like that they shouldn't belong to the room and so on. And 55% senior leaders went through sexual harassment if they were the only in the company. So I wanted to share that kind of, I understand what you're saying with the kind of, we all have we are good at copywriting or leadership, but at the same time, it's really important not to be the only one in the room. Could we have the Slido? Anybody? If you still have questions, you can send them to Slido SGP. What do you think that is the problem of men related to women in business? I'm not sure I understand the question. Is anybody brave enough to explain his question or her question? Thank you.
I think so. I wouldn't make so much of a separation between what men think of women and what women think of women. I actually think we all think certain things about men and women subconsciously. Even those of us who don't think we should. If anyone has come across the unconscious bias, I can't remember what it's called now, but there's a study at Harvard that looks at unconscious bias across a range of different groups of people, race and gender and so on and so forth. And you have certain words that are associated with men or associated with women, and then you have faces of men and women, and when they're lined up according to the stereotype, you can answer questions really quickly, and when they're done it the opposite way, you can answer questions you can't. So there are associations, and however much consciously you think there aren't things going on, there are. Because most of our decisions and our impressions are made unconsciously initially, and it's hard to overcome that. So I think that's just being human. And I think what we can do is to just be aware of it and compensate for it in the ways that we can. But I wouldn't say that men are particularly mean to women versus women being mean to women. I actually think women are often really tough on other women, and there's a self-toughness as well. I think women expect to have to work harder in order to prove themselves. There are things like you were talking earlier about women won't push themselves forward. Often it's because that there is research to show that if women are applying for a job, they will only apply for a job if they meet 100% of the criteria. 120. Yeah, 120. But 100% of the criteria on the job description was men will take a punt. They'll try it. If they meet 50, 70%, they'll try it. And what that means is that sometimes men will get something that's a stretch job and the women won't. They'll get a job that they're really confident they can do. It's stuff like that. It's those kinds of subconscious things, and we all fall into those traps. It's not just prejudice from men.
Do you girls feel like it? Is there a way how to fight those biases that are inside us?
I do. I'm an optimist. I think, and what I learned, what I pick up from my experience, what really helps is to have the common purpose. Yes, if we are clear about what we are doing and why we are doing that, and we only have the people who really share that, I think all the other stuff just fades away. Yes, because at the end of the day, I really don't care whether it's a man or a woman, whether the lady is Indian and the man is Brazilian, whether he's a gay and she is a single mother. I think to have the common purpose and the reasons, where are we going and why are we going there, I think that helps enormously.
I think so. I think there's a great question. What was your biggest professional mistake you're willing to share? And I'll start with Kim because she hasn't talked much.
Like in our startup or in general? I would say sometimes maybe overconfidence. It is good to be confident. I do believe that. But if you're really going to walk in somewhere, you could actually burn that bridge. And I think that might have been some of not only me, but our team's maybe biggest mistake is that we've come in some places thinking a little bit too high of the situation, and then the door's closed. And maybe that could have been averted. So always do your research before. Always make sure you're you know what you're walking into, I would say. Probably because we opened an office in China, and we walked into the Chinese market a little bit because in the beginning everyone's welcoming and, 3 women coming in there. And there's a lot of procedures or ways you have to approach businesses there. And we kind of walked in as Western women just being like, yeah, it's going to work. And they were like, no. And I think that was something we had to realize beforehand. There's a different way of doing business in China. And now we know that, and now it's fine. But maybe that could have been averted if we did our research. So.
Kyriaki, what was yours biggest mistake?
Biggest mistake? Well, many. From where to start? But what comes first in my mind is I regret for the things that I haven't done. So this is what comes first in my mind. I mean, I have done millions of mistakes. I do everyday mistakes. We're doing But what comes big is that I really regret for opportunities that I didn't grab, for learning I didn't capture. So these are the biggest mistakes that I can regret. All the others I do not regret because useful mistakes.
Give a specific example.
Yeah, was it learning Chinese or?
Sorry?
Was it learning Chinese or something
learning
different?
Chinese? No. I cannot even learn Czech. And I cannot even think about Chinese. No, opportunities like, big projects that maybe I have hesitated to take the lead when that was offered to me. And this kind of stuff. I mean, this kind of exams comes to my mind.
Devi, do you want to share yours?
Yeah, I think I want to tell a story, but it turns around at the end. But it speaks a little bit to what you were just saying. When I was running my business, I was underconfident, and I was juggling it with looking after my kids. I was working basically in a little attic in my house a couple of days a week. And I remember watching a video one day of a man who'd started a business at the same time as me in a not completely different field to mine. And he had got consultants from McKinsey doing stuff for free. He'd got people from business schools. He'd got, I don't know, loads of these big names, and he was standing on stage and got lots of investment and so on. And I was sitting there in my attic going, why is he able to do that and I'm not? And then I realized that the only difference was that he believed he could, and I'd decided that somehow that wasn't allowed. I was just a mum in my attic. And actually, it didn't matter all my previous business success, the fact that I got promoted anytime I worked for somebody, it didn't matter because I was just a mum. And so what I decided at that time was that I would ask people that I wanted to be involved in my business, and that either they would have a blog or do a podcast or endorse, even just one tweet, something, but these were, and my only rule to myself was that they had to be the people I really wanted, even if they felt completely impossible. So, and I had to have 100 of them, and each day, each working day, I would ask one of them if they would do something for my business. So I put Barack Obama on the list. I put Oprah Winfrey on the list, and I put some more reachable people, but because that was my rule, that I would not cross anybody off the list because I thought they were impossible, they went on the list. And I believed that that I would have succeeded if I got one of them to say yes. Only one. But each day I'd have to ask somebody. So I started with the ones that felt easier. Didn't start with Barack, but the first person I asked said yes. And then on the second day, the second person I asked said yes. And guess what happened with the third person? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, you have to get over yourself, woman. This is ridiculous. And not everybody said yes. By the time I got to 20, I had about a 50% success rate. But it's such a big lesson to me, and this is why I tell this story often. Carolina at the back there has heard it before. Because I really think it's so important. And when I catch myself, I still catch myself doing that. I'm like, okay, reset. Who do I really want? What do I really want? What's really possible here? Let's not assume that we can't.
Did you reach Barack?
I tried. I got, the closest I got was, we had an event at Impact Hub where it was like a 6 degrees of separation type event where people asked for connections to people. I had a connection to somebody who worked in the White House. That's as close as I got. And then the following weekend, completely coincidentally, some of the entrepreneurs that I mentored and had been working with for nearly 3 years ended up at an event in Oxford where Barack Obama was speaking. And I was like, go and talk to him for me. But they didn't. That's as close as I got.
Maybe you kind of, I thought about one question and I wanted to ask any of you. Do you feel that there is a difference between younger generation and us? And I will intentionally say us.
Some of them and not others.
Andrea?
I think there is a big difference. I think there is a big difference in terms of my generation or our generation. I think we are much more humble. We are much more hesitating, thinking, yes, to have 120% before I ask for the job, to be completely super ready for everything I do. And I have my kids and I see their friends, and I also see really young people who are joining the company. They don't think that much about this kind of stuff. No, if they want to go, they go. And in a way, I like it, even though I think they will pick up some learnings along the way.
I think yes and no. I would say, sure, there's this, difference, but if I look at our investor, she's all for everything new, and she's like, go for it. And I kind of like that, and she's, a different generation than us, so I think it's yes and no. Depends.
Very good. Actually, Kim, I'll stay with you. How many developers, designers of your app are women? How diverse is your team?
They're all men. We hired a company in India, or we outsourced our developers from India. They're an awesome company. We really love them. They're a startup, actually. But we have 4 developers that are men and designers that are men. Sorry, guys. I know you wanted a different answer, but...
Kind of hoping for some kind of a commitment or something like that. And also, is gender pay gap still a thing, in your opinion? And any of you? And then... Devi? He wants.
Yes, it absolutely is. Yeah.
Not in my company, and actually we have got a paper for that, so I know that for sure.
Certificate.
Yeah, we have a certificate. There is a foundation in Switzerland which came up with a methodology, and there is a PricewaterhouseCoopers who is doing the exercise. And Philip Morris International is the first international company who has been awarded the equal salary certificate. And it doesn't only involve equal salary, but it actually involves a lot of things which you were talking about. So equal opportunities for job, equal opportunities for trainings and professional growth, equal treatment of people with kids. So parents, whether parental leave, whether mommy or daddy want to go, etc., etc. So it's and it's a really deep exercise, starting in New Zealand, going through India, Europe, up to Canada, and we've got a paper for that. So not in our company.
The same. We have the same paper.
I do have the data for the whole world based on the findings of UN Women. It's actually women earn 77% of what men earn. So that's kind of the general data. In the Czech Republic, pay gap is 21%. It's the second largest in European Union. So. I would love to applaud for that one. No.
Sometimes these things are also more complex than just exactly the same job. So one of my very good friends, we've been friends since school, she is an employment lawyer. And her firm is currently taking a number of class actions against supermarkets in the UK. And what they're doing in these class actions are comparing unskilled labor jobs in warehouses, which are primarily employing men, and at the checkouts, which are primarily employing women. And what they're saying is these jobs are equivalent skill levels, but the warehouse jobs are paid significantly more than the checkout jobs. And they're winning the cases in the courts. So there's a level of complexity here. If you think about it, a couple of 100 years ago, secretaries were men, and they were paid more and respected more than secretaries often then became when secretaries became mostly women. It's not just about, oh, you're doing the same job and do you have the same pay? It's are there structural things where mostly men do, mostly women do, but actually skill-wise they're equivalent? It's complex. These things are really complex.
I would like to add one more statistics. Actually, 15% of men who work in Czech e-commerce are planning to ask for a pay rise compared to 7% only of women. So men are more likely to ask for a pay rise as well. So maybe we are kind of heading to the finish. So I would like to ask actually, first one, please find Andrea, ask her about the smoking thing. I'm not, omitting it. I just feel like, I used to be a smoker, so I can't listen to that. So one last thing, one advice. We have so many wonderful young women sitting in the audience, and I would like you to give them a piece of advice. What would have helped you being in their age and being maybe in their position? And if you feel like it, add also a piece of advice for the men sitting in the audience, how they could help us change the numbers that we talked about today.
Okay.
Thank you.
A piece of advice in a humble way, because I don't feel that, we're in the position to give advice, but from experience, just a couple of things that comes on top of my mind. The first advice that I will give is that just find your own purpose. So why you are doing what you are doing. And that's always the question that needs to be up in the head. So why? It's the purpose. And the second advice that I will give, which is, as I already mentioned, it's my way of thinking, is that go out from the perfectionist zone and just admit that you are human beings. And then life will become so easy for all of you. Now, for the dear men, just one advice. Embrace diversity from your side as well. Embrace the different thinking. Support your wives at home. Don't forget. Your daughters, if you have. And raise your daughters and sons in the equal way, giving them also equal opportunities. But I believe that the support of the family at home, and especially for your wives and your partners, it's extremely important. So please do so. They need you.
Thank you, Kim.
One thing I would have wanted maybe somebody to tell me was don't be afraid to move on. If you're not happy in a situation, in a company, if you're not feeling valued, go. Don't feel the need to have to stay there and think you're going to prove it, because the people who don't believe in you, they won't change. So the best thing you can do is just move on, find something new, or pursue what you want to do. Pursue your, new company or anything. But don't just hang around because you want to prove them something. It's not going to help you. And I wish somebody would have told me that a little bit earlier as well. For the men, I don't know, embrace diversity.
I like the point about purpose. I'm a big fan of that. I like the point about move on and build, create your own life and take responsibility for all of that. So I absolutely endorse both of that. What I would add is here in the room I can see the ladies who can probably understand a little bit better what I am going to mention, and maybe some of you a little bit less. But it's not far away that there were times, for example, I remember my grandma. She was born in 1915, and she didn't have the opportunities which we have. She just couldn't, okay? She went to school, and then when her parents decided that they need her at home, then she stayed at home. She didn't have any other choice. We have all the choices in our life, so let's use them. So that's for the ladies. For the men, I like who mentioned that in the meeting, be active advocates of and activators actually of other people in the room to be involved in the discussion and in the decision-making process. At the end of the day, you will benefit from that, because you will get a better decision, you will get more around it and a holistic idea about what you need to do.
Devi?
Yeah, I think advice-wise, we've heard a lot about how women don't ask for stuff for themselves, and I think that is the advice I would give. Ask for stuff that doesn't be unreasonable. What feels unreasonable, and you'll find that there are plenty of men who think it is reasonable. So be unreasonable, often, repeatedly. And for men, I think, often when you talk to women, you talk about work-life balance. You need to talk about that with men too. So what's your work-life balance? How do you support your family, not just financially, but in every way? How do you do your share? Because actually, women have been fighting for equality for decades, and there have been many men who've been truly supportive of that. But until it's really the turn of the men to change now.
It was amazing. I would love to thank my speakers, Devi, Andrea, Kim, Kyriaki. You were amazing, you were inspirational, and you really changed the world today. Thank you, Patrick, for inviting all of us and letting us speak about our favorite topics. And thank you for listening to us. And please don't forget to exchange the business cards with the people you introduced yourself to. Thank you.